everybody, welcome to Anna's Pastry Kitchen and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to go back to the mid-1970s. I pulled a recipe out of my recipe box for Watergate cake. What a classic. Made popular in the mid-1970s. Named after either the Watergate scandal of the Nixon presidency or just made popular by the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. I'm not really sure, but I've read quite a few fun little things online about why this cake was named the Watergate cake. Some people say the icing is called impeachment icing because it covers up any mistakes. The cake has a lot of nuts in it, much like politics. So that is just a little background on Watergate cake. So it calls for a white cake mix, and I will say that I do not mind using a cake mix. I think Duncan Hines is especially good, and it ends up making a very moist cake, and it's easy. It also calls for a box of pistachio pudding, instant. So the cake ends up being green. So we've got the pistachio pudding, and then it also calls for ginger ale in the cake or 7-Up, some sort of soda. And then the icing uses Dream Whip, which honestly I haven't used this in years, but this is a shelf-stable whipped topping mix. So it mimics whipped cream or Cool Whip, shelf-stable. Can't hurt to have it on hand in case you need to whip up a whipped cream product. So stay tuned, this is going to be so much fun. In the next portion of the video, I want to show you how I grease my bump pan. Nothing worse than having a cake stick to your bump pan, so stay tuned for more. Okay, I'm speeding things up a little bit. Just want to show you that I'm using softened butter to grease the bump pan. I'm getting in all the nooks and crannies here, taking a little bit of time to make sure it's well buttered or well greased. The worst thing in the world is having your cake stick to your pan when you try to invert it, so I'm doing a good job. And then I'm using almond flour. It's got a little bit larger grain. I think it will help the cake pop out a little easier instead of using white flour. So I'm coating the inside of the pan with that, and then I'll tap any extra or excess flour into the sink or the trash. Looks good. Okay everybody, so I have greased and floured my pan. I kind of like the way this almond flour is working so far, so we'll see. Fingers crossed. So in my mixing bowl here, I've added the cake mix and the box of instant pistachio pudding. I've poured that in there. Now I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients and we'll stir it up. It calls for 1 cup of ginger ale. What a fun recipe. By the way, back in the 70s, there was also a Watergate salad that was absolutely not a salad. It had like pistachio pudding, and it had pineapple, and it had marshmallows, and it was just so sweet and, you know, a little bit disgusting, but they called it the Watergate salad. Anyway, the good old 70s. So next I'll add 3 eggs, and I do like to break my eggs into a little bowl ahead of time in case you have a bad egg, you don't want to crack it directly into your batter. In my entire life of baking, I think it's happened once or twice where I actually had a bad egg. And then next up I'm going to add 1 cup of vegetable oil, some healthy and delicious ingredients, right? And we're not too worried about healthy at the moment, as you can tell. So there is a cup of vegetable oil. That's kind of a lot of vegetable oil. No wonder this cake is so good. Alright, so I'll keep that mixing. It's a light green color. It's going to be fabulous. It's bringing back memories for me. And I cannot wait to have a piece of Watergate cake tonight. I'm trying to figure out what to do with all this cake. I might do porch pickup for neighbors, just get the word out. We'll see. I sure don't need to have a whole cake sitting here. Okay, so I mixed the batter here for about 4 minutes on medium. And the last step for the cake is I'll add a half a cup of chopped nuts. I wanted to also just mention my Pampered Chef chopper. Such an essential tool in the kitchen. I really love this chopper. And I also wanted to show you my very favorite cutting board. This is an Epicurean cutting board. I just like the way it looks and feels. It's thin, it washes up really nice. It's very durable. I just really, really like this Epicurean cutting board. So I'm going to go ahead and add a half a cup of chopped pecans, and I'm not going to mix it much longer, just until it gets mixed in. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and scoop this into our cake pan and put it in the oven. Of course, I have my spatula here. Let's go ahead and do this. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and pour this cake mix. So easy and so delicious. Nice green color, don't you think? All right, off we go to the races. We've got our Watergate cake with pistachio pudding and pecans, ready to go in the oven. Okay, my timer went off. It's been 45 minutes. I'm gonna pull the cake out and check it, and it looks like I have help from the dogs here. It looks good. You know, one test is if it springs back. When you touch it, it's done, so it looks done to me. I'm also gonna go ahead and put up this long, thin knife, and it comes out clean. So the cake is done. It looks beautiful. We did a good job. I'm gonna let it cool for about 10 to 15 minutes and then invert it onto a plate. Okay, so I've cooled my cake for about 15 minutes. I'm gonna run this butter knife around the edge. And it's a little, you know, kind of ins and outs because of the bundt pan, but, you know, loosen it a little. I'm also gonna see if I can get down in the center without, like, cutting into the cake. All right, and now we are gonna cross our fingers and say a prayer, and we're gonna see if that lovely cake will invert onto this pretty platter that I want to show you really quick. Since this is my grandmother's recipe for Watergate cake, I'm using a platter that my grandmother painted, so she used to paint china. So there you go. And now we'll just take this. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. It's a little heavier than I thought. I'm gonna put it on the top, and then we're gonna go like that. Alright, fingers crossed. Yay! It came out. I am so glad. I'm very relieved. I think that almond flour was a good choice. So there it is. We'll let it cool, and then I'll go ahead and put the frosting on. I'm so excited. Okay, we're back. Here's the cake. You saw it before. It's cooled for about an hour or so. You don't want to spread this frosting on it or icing on it when it's warm. So in the mixer bowl, I put 1 packet of my Dream Whip. So fun. I have 3/4 cup of milk that I'm putting in. And last but not least, I'm going to add half a packet of this instant pistachio pudding. So, no idea what I'll do with the other half of the packet. But there we go. So this is going to be some green frosting here. And I might add just a teeny little bit of vanilla. Just for fun, why not? Okay, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of pistachio, a little Dream Whip. It's going to be good. So I also toasted pecans in the oven, and I toasted some sweetened shredded coconut so that we can sprinkle that on top of the cake after we frost it. So that's going to take a couple minutes. I'll come back in just a minute, and you can watch me ice our Watergate cake. All right, so I whipped up the Dream Whip and the pistachio pudding. Look at that. It's light green. You know, I was thinking this would be a fabulous cake for St. Patty's Day. It's so green and sort of fluffy. It just seems like a leprechaun would love this cake. So I don't have a huge game plan here. I like putting the frosting on the top, and then I'll spread it with my cake spatula, and then I'll sprinkle some nuts and coconut on top. All right, there we go with that. And so I'm just gonna like spread it around the sides, roll it off the top. Doesn't have to be perfect. You know, it's nice that we'll have a little something to sprinkle on the top, so that kind of makes it look fancy and finished. This part is far from perfect. You're just getting this yummy, fluffy icing spread around, and then we'll sprinkle it. So when I was looking through my recipe box and found the recipe for a Watergate cake, I also found a note that I left my mom when I was 6. It says, Anna, age 6. And it says, Anna, come home at 5:30. So imagine that, at age 6, I went out to play and left my mom a note. That's pretty funny. So I'm gonna do nuts across the whole thing. And I'll probably do coconut on half because not everybody in my house likes coconut. And that's okay. Some of us do and some of us don't. Alright, there's your nuts. And I toasted these chopped pecans in the oven, and I also toasted the coconut. Alright, there's your Watergate cake. It looks delicious. Thanks for joining me, everybody. It's been really fun. Thanks for joining me on this trip down memory lane. Hope to see you soon.